I talked to people in Longmont. A lady around the corner when I was gathering my signatures, nomination signatures, she said, Gary, she said, I feel safe in Longmont. I think Longmont is a safe city. But I don't feel as safe as I used to. And that's quite a common sentiment. There's definitely been a change. There's been a push to lessen penalties at the state level. Phil Weisner, our state attorney general, you can find it, he's quoted as saying that maybe if you've stolen a car 3 or 4 times, by then you should have cash bail. A couple years ago, a young woman drove a car through the wall of a pawn shop and went in and stole 12 firearms. Over time, the last I checked, 7 of those had been recovered. They were all recovered from criminals. So the woman was out on a no cash bail. So if we're not, there's no push or backbone to actually enforce, keep people in jail that 100% of people should agree would be in jail. So if we're not even going to do that, I don't know what we're going to do. So let me tell you about my street right here, which this happened in the last year. We had a house on my street, which is a reasonable area of Longmont. It's probably my neighborhood, I would guess, is slightly below the household medium level, but it's a nice neighborhood. I've known people, we've lived in this house for 25 years, and there are people on the street that have lived here longer than that. Anyhow, through an unfortunate circumstance with one of my neighbors, financial issues and such, I don't know the details of it, but the house ended up being one where was large amounts of drug activity occurring there. And neighbors were calling police. We were trying to get things done. We couldn't get things done. It ultimately sort of self-resolved because of a mortgage payment issue, I think it was. So that happened on our street. So that was, people were worried about that. And I had neighbors that, because of the activity was so brazen, so frequent, and frankly frightening. My daughter also lives on the street with our grandchildren, her husband. She told me, she's like, Dad, I don't want I'm not taking my children into the front yard to play. I had neighbors that were arming themselves out of fear, okay? So I have a plan. If you read my solutions-based platform that outlines how we can transition Longmont's police force into the crown jewel of the Front Range, where veteran officers want to come work, where we protect our police force and we keep ourselves fully staffed with veterans, a good mix of veterans and rookies. And listen, Robert, I'm not like a crazy rah-rah, cop, pro-cop, bang some heads kind of person. I spent the better part of my 20s going to Grateful Dead concerts. I mean, that's my formative years. That's the kind of stuff I was doing. But it's obvious that with the backdrop of our Attorney General, Phil Weisner, and this push, this idea that we can reduce crime by reducing criminal penalties, the sad reality of that is it's creating the exact opposite conditions. And you have the woman around the corner who doesn't feel as safe as she once did. You had my daughter frightened to play with her children in the front yard, and neighbors that were now arming themselves because of drug activity on the street. And let me give you, we'll finish this topic with a much more dramatic example that happened on my street about, I think, 5 houses down. So about 2.5 months ago, there was a car that was stolen, and the owner of the vehicle told the police that there was a firearm in the car. And they contacted the manufacturer, Toyota. They were able to track the vehicle. However that worked, I don't know, but that's my understanding of what happened, and they were following it around. Came back into the city and was driving north on the street toward my neighborhood. And they put stop sticks down, and the car crashed, and he went on foot, and he ended up in a garage on my street. Confrontation with the owners of the house, my neighbors. SWAT team was in the neighborhood. They figured out where it was at. SWAT was at the front door. My neighbor thought it was the assailant at the front door that had left and come back, and was yelling to get the hell away from his house. SWAT interpreted that as the assailant was inside the house. So it was a very scary, really tragic, really unfortunate miscommunication in that moment in time. SWAT team kicked open the door. The neighbor had a pellet gun and fired at the police officer as they came through the door because the neighbor thought it was the assailant. And the police fired 7 shots in my neighbor's house. And through the grace of God and the fortunate circumstance, everyone missed. So the Boulder DA has determined no one was at fault. The homeowner wasn't at fault. SWAT wasn't at fault. But these are real crimes, and this is happening. This happened on my street, 5 doors down. I told you about the drug thing. So crime is out there. I want to bolster our police force. I want to make it the best police force in the Front Range. And that doesn't mean the police force that's going to get out and crack skulls. You know, we're talking about, you know, community value police force. It's going to go after the criminals and preserve the rights of law-abiding citizens, and do it in a way that the policing meshes with the values and ideals of our community. But, you know, to the extent we can, we're going to have to insulate ourselves from what's happening in our state capital.
I totally hear you